right, well, nice to have you with us as we kick over broadcast day here on Mad Dog Unleashed on this busy Tuesday. Nice to have you with us on the greatest SiriusXM 82, greatest platform you can have as we chat. Eddie Erickson's in the house today, so is Colin Schmeling, Billy Z, Steve Torrey, Matt's here too. Lots to do on a busy afternoon. Looking forward to Gary Danielson later on the draft. We'll do our good buddy Tony Rizzo later too. He, of course, Mr. Cleveland, LeBron, and what's going on with the Brownies. We'll spend some time there as we chat to you about what's cooking. 888 Mad Dog 6 is your two-way sports talk telephone number on this busy day. Let me do this here first, get this going, and we'll get back to you here. Number one, on a Monday night of sports, I got two things to say. Can you start the Oklahoma City game a little earlier than 10:43 when the first game is over at about 10:20? I mean, can you spare me the 10 minutes on the East Coast and start the game a touch earlier? Is that possible? Can you do that, please? Can you give me a little break? I mean, my goodness, the Houston-Minnesota game, which was a disaster in the last 15 minutes, and give Houston credit. Can you at least, I don't need to see Shaq and Barkley and Ernie Johnson. Get to the dopey game, please. Kenny Smith breaking down OKC. Let me see the game on the East Coast at a reasonable time. That game started way after 10:40. I mean, it's bad enough they throw them at 10:47. They started at 10:40 last. That game should have started at 10:30 on the nose. As it turns out, I went to bed after the first quarter. I said, you know what? I'm not staying up. If they're going to do this to me, I am not going to stay up till 1:10 in the morning. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it, and I didn't, and I got the score at 6 a.m., and away we go now with Utah, which leads us to question number two, and that is Westbrook. And we have gone through this 1,000 times with Westbrook. I don't know how to read it. He's a very, very difficult guy to build a team around. I mean, that's really is essentially what you're dealing with. He's a very difficult guy to build a championship team around. He needs the ball in his hands constantly. His sheer winning, his sheer competitiveness, his personality demands that he be the attention every single trip down the court. And the problem with that is that you can't win deep into the playoffs with that kind of philosophy. You can make the playoffs. They showed that last year when he had a bug up his rear end all year long because Durant left him, but they still lost to Houston in 5 games, who then got ambushed by San Antonio. So you can win your 45 games. He can win all the triple-double accomplishments in the world and win an MVP, but at the end of the day, you don't really become a big-time playoff factor. Or you go the other way and you surround him with a couple of players, and granted, Carmelo is completely shot. You go the other way and you surround him with Paul George, who's a great shooter and a good one-on-one player, and he does a little bit of everything pretty well. And Anthony, who at times can make a big jump shot. And Adams. You can go that way, and then he's going to have to sit there and acquiesce in certain sequences to get everybody else involved, which does not get the best out of Westbrook, and you lose that way too. So you are really in an impossible situation when you're building a team around Westbrook. So I think he's a dominating theme. I think OKC has been all fouled up all year. They've been erratic all year. I think that they might win Game 5, and I wouldn't even bet the ranch on that. But I would think that Utah, that has it going right now, a team that was 10 games under 500 earlier in the year, I think they were 19-29, and they somehow figured out a way to win 48, 49 games. They are good at home, and they got this kid Mitchell who's good. They can make threes. Rubio, they got a good feel of them. Give the franchise a lot of credit. They lost Hayward, and here it is. They're going to go longer in the postseason than the Celtics might. That's no fault of Hayward. That's just the way it is. And Utah, not a championship team, and probably routed in round 2, but they should get by this first round. And if you're a Utah Jazz fan, and I told you, the day that Hayward decided last July to go to the Celtics that you were going to make the postseason next year anyway and get to the second round, you would have been delighted. And I think that's where the Jazz are right now. And Houston, again, that is why you don't spend too much time making a big deal about the Game 3 loss. And even at the first half last night, 50-49, Minnesota, it was a one-point game. 1-point game. I don't know who was. I think it was Houston was up by a point. I don't know. Yeah, they were up a point because they scored 50 points in the third quarter and they had 100 after 3. I mean, again, when Houston gets it going that way and they make threes and they play pretty good defense, they're motivated to play some defense. Harden's into it. Minnesota's not beating them. The case closed. Now, they're not going to do that 4 times against Golden State. All right, but against Minnesota and probably against Utah, they're going to respond in a big way. And that's what they did yesterday, and they responded, and they're going to push Minnesota over the edge in Game 5 on Wednesday. So the NBA Western Conference right now, San Antonio is going to get ambushed tonight. They're going to get killed in Golden State. That series is over. Minnesota's got no chance in my eyes Wednesday in Houston. That series is over. And I don't know about Oklahoma City, even if they win a game. So there's not a lot of drama first round in the West where you thought there might be in the two series that did not involve the Warriors and the Rockets, because you thought Portland and New Orleans would be competitive, and you thought Utah and Indian and Oklahoma City would be competitive, and that may in fact not be the case. So they might get two quickies in those, which will hurt the NBA West. One other note on the NBA, and this is their fault, and it's a disgrace. How about the NBA and the NHL postseason was put together on paper, television-wise, and game schedule-wise, first round quicker than the NBA was. How dumb does the NBA look right now that knowing the Leafs and the Bruins, a series that everybody knew was going to be a 7-game series, how did the NBA decide to put the Raptors and the Wizards Game 5 the same night that there might be a Game 7 of the Leafs and the Bruins? Now, you can sit there and tell me, well, Chris, how do you know? How do you mean how you know? I mean, the whole world knew that Toronto had an excellent chance of the Bruins to have a long series. And remember, the Toronto-Washington scenario for tomorrow night, there's 2 days in between. They could have played tonight. And they could have had this game tonight and let the Celtics play tomorrow night. That's, or have Philadelphia play them all night. That is a horrendous job by the NBA schedule makers, and as a result, what they're going to get is they're going to get everybody in Toronto tomorrow who goes to the Wizards and Raptors, go there with a transistor radio, listening to or looking at their phones all night because they want to see what the Leafs are doing in the 7th game. The Leafs are Canada. The Raptors are not. That's a horrendous job schedule-wise by the NBA. And that is a great Game 7. We need to do something in that spot tomorrow already and the other series because I'm looking forward to that Game 7 tomorrow with the Leafs and the Bruins. That will have a lot of juice, that game. They played a few years ago, that classic in overtime in the 7th game. Well done there. Good job by the Leafs getting back in that series. Who would have thought that after the first 2 games? And, of course, give the Capitals credit, too, because the Capitals, out of nowhere, dead to rights, 2 overtime losses out of the gate, going into the first overtime and the second overtime in Game 3 in Columbus. Who in America would ever have thought that we would have been sitting here and the Capitals would have won 4 in a row with their playoff history? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. Goaltending issues. They had the backup play. They tried to do something different. They benched Hopi. Hopi bails them out. And now I think that this team is very dangerous in this next round. All right, their old nemesis, the Penguins, who they never beat, which I get. I understand that. They never beat them. But you know what? If you're going to slay dragons, you got to do it the hard way. 2 losses at home to start the first round, having to go back to their goalie who they gave up on in Hopi, and they got him out of that series with Columbus, a pesky team who played competitively and beat the Capitals really all over the place in the third period of Game 4. In Game 5. Didn't score. Capitals survived it. Won last night going away. And now the Capitals sit there and get the Penguins with home ice. And one of these years they're going to beat them. One of these years. And the NHL, I know nobody cares except for the diehards out there, the Eric and Long Islands, the Sean and Queenses, the Colin Schmellings, Winnipeg, Nashville, Vegas, San Jose, Washington, Pittsburgh, take your pick, Tampa. That is a hell of a second-round series. Hell. And then the baseball. But we all know what you want me to talk about, and I'll give you a few thoughts on that after a quick timeout. Don't go away.
Lock it in. It's